Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. My name is Lee Brock, and I'm one of the co-artistic directors of the Barrow Group. And I welcome you all here this afternoon to hear our artist conversation with the wonderful Kate Hathaway. And Kate has been with the Barrow Group for, I'm going to say, a very, very long time, since the beginning here. And she is a marvelous actor and singer and producer, and we're so grateful to have her here today. For those of you who don't know who the Barrow Group is a nonprofit theater company and training program located in New York City. And we produce plays and we train actors and we develop work. And we are just in our new space as of April 1st. We've been existing for about 36 years. And Kate was there from the very, very beginning. So great. So for today's purposes, if we could actually turn our videos off and our mics off. And if you have questions for Kate, I'm going to get the conversation going, but you can put your questions in the chat and I will throw out the questions to her and we will, and then she'll answer the questions. So terrific. So if I could get people to turn their cameras off, that would be great. So we'll just take a moment to make sure that the cameras are off. And I know sometimes we can't figure out that. Great. So great. Yeah. Well, yes. And Lynn's going to find when that camera's off. Thank you, Lynn. Excellent. It's so good to see you. It's so good to see you. So welcome, Kate. Terrific. So maybe my first question, maybe what's keeping you inspired these days?
That's a big question. I mean, the world the way it is, this is probably maybe not the most wonderful answer, but honestly, what's keeping me inspired in this moment is the Ukrainian people, because they're showing such resilience and bravery and fortitude. And, I'm constantly praying for them. I know that's not like a real creative answer, but honestly, we've all been through such hard times in the past 2 years. And to see these people being thrown into this situation and just like not just lying down, like standing up and saying no. And even the other day on the New York subway, seeing that horrific thing that happened, but people, New Yorkers, just jumping in and that very heroic guy from the military, who was putting the tourniquet on, and he had been in a medic in I think in the Middle East, and just seeing acts like that, through all these hard times really inspire me. And I'd love to think of a way like how can we make art out of that?
Right. Yes. And yes, how can we make art out of that? And thank you for the people that are joining us now here on Facebook Live. And we are having a conversation here with Kate Hathaway. And I just asked her what is keeping her inspired these days. And that was absolutely amazing. You're right. How can we bring humanity into our art? Right. And so, yeah, which is so, a challenge. And
so hats off to the writers. I'm not a writer, I'm not a playwright. But I think the people who can take our circumstances and which are real, and then turn that into something, as you said, look for the humanity in it, and then turn that into something that universally we can all relate to, which right. I think we can. That's what is inspiring me to look for works like that.
Right. Which, you and I have had this conversation for years and years. It's, art really is the thing that heals the world, and art can bring people together. And how can we find these projects that can heal the world, bring people together, and keep finding ways that we can kind of bridge these communications. So So you are, like, as I said, like an amazing actor, singer, producer, and
You're a good friend.
yeah, yeah. When did you start acting? You started acting. How old were you when you started acting?
Oh my goodness. Well, I actually, before I started acting, I think I just started entertaining.
Okay.
And I think my sister, who is on this Zoom, would attest to that. That, you know, my family was sort of a showbiz family. My father was a very famous radio announcer in Philadelphia, and there was always music in our house, and we were always getting up and performing. And I, more than anybody in my family, I have two brothers and my sister who's on this Zoom. And I just would, in fact, we had a thing in my family where my mother would say, okay, whoever finishes dinner first gets to get up and perform. And you better believe I gobbled down my food because because I wanted to be the one who got up and entertained. And my parents would have friends over. I'd get up and I'd sing in the living room. I think I was 3 years old or something like that. And then I started sort of doing little acts with my dad when I was about 4. So I was very used to getting up in front of people, and I really enjoyed it. But the first time I had stepped on a stage was in kindergarten in a production of Little Red Riding Hood, in which I had told my family I was playing Little Red Riding Hood, but it was a lie. I was playing her mother. So I wanted to be a star even back then. But the real first job that I ever had was at what is no longer there, but it was called the Cape May Playhouse. Mm-hmm. And I was probably 7 years old, and it was a production. It was a summer stock playhouse, Equity Theater. It was run by Paul Barry. I don't know if you remember Paul Barry, but he also ran the New Jersey Shakespeare Festival for many, many years. And he they would do a 1 week rehearsal, typical summer stock schedule, 1 week rehearsal, 1 week of the show. And it was South Pacific. And I had brown hair and brown eyes, so they cast me as a little girl in Ghana. And but the way I got the part was kind of funny because my mother had heard that they were looking for this little girl, and I overheard she and my father talking about it. And I jumped on my bicycle and rode over to the Cape May Playhouse and walked in and said, I hear you need a little girl for a play. I'm here. So that was that was the first time I started. And then in the summers I would do things. I mean, I grew up in a small area in Pennsylvania, near Ambler, Pennsylvania, in Bluebell. And so there wasn't a lot of theatrical opportunities around then, but I was always interested, and did all the high school shows in the area. Even before I was in high school, my sister and I both went to a wonderful high school named Mount St. Joseph Academy in Philadelphia, or outside of Philadelphia in Flowertown. And so when she was there, I started going, and if they needed a kid, I was in the Sound of Music there. I was in The King and I, and then I did all their shows in high school. I did the shows at LaSalle College High School, which is LaSalle High School, which was where my now husband went to school. Mm-hmm. And so my acting roots are firmly rooted in Philadelphia.
And that's great. And you're singing. When did you kind of know that when you kind of started singing? It sounds like that was very early, but kind of what were some of those early roles that made you kind of realize singing, and that you have this amazing belt voice? I mean, you've played you Eva Perón and Evita, just incredible voice. And so when was that?
Which we did together.
Discovered that, which we did together.
Yes.
Right? Yes, there we go.
I think it was because when I started studying voice, which was when I was in 9th grade and freshman in high school, with this wonderful sister of St. Joseph named Sister Mary Donald, who is legendary. She was very conservative. We studied the Italian method, so I got like a really strong base in, singing classically. Mm-hmm. But primarily I'm a belter. And when, but I never did that when I first started. But then when I was in 10th grade, I auditioned for a production of Damn Yankees in a high school play at LaSalle. And all of a sudden, this big voice came out of me. And that's when I thought, well, there's other ways of singing. So I started, it was almost like at the Mount, I would do all these soprano roles because I played Maria in the South Pacific, and I was in Plain and Fancy as a soprano. But then over at LaSalle, I was doing Nellie Forbush and Hello Dolly and all these big belt roles. So, you know, but I really enjoyed those roles a lot more than the sopranos. I was never a true ingenue. I was, if I was an ingenue, I was a kooky ingenue and nothing else. But yeah.
Right. So wonderful. And so I'm looking at this beautiful poster behind you. Well, all those posters behind you, and the poster of Anne, which you produced, and then you were able to play that this year at the down at Cape May. So, and how was that for you? Just even doing that show. We can talk about you producing it and also playing that wonderful role, which you were fantastic in. So just even producing it, what drew you to produce that?
Okay, well, what drew me to it was seeing Ann Richards give the keynote speech at the 1988 Democratic National Convention. And, I just, when she came out with that line, poor George, he can't help it, he was born with a silver foot in his mouth. I just fell off the sofa and I thought, who is this woman? And as you can see, we share similar hair.
Yes.
And I just loved Ann Richards. And, so I started to follow her, and I thought she was so great for Texas. I was so excited when she got elected. I thought, this is going to be a really, such a turning point for women and minorities in Texas, because that is really what her philosophy was, her political philosophy was. It was, life isn't fair, but government should be. And so, she had the most diverse administration, I think, ever in the history of Texas. So I love this woman. And, I was kind of thinking, do I still want to act? Do I want to go into casting, which is something that I thought about? And then I thought, would I like producing? So Jerry and I had a mutual friend, had a friend who had another friend who is Harriet Levy, who's a very big Broadway, Tony winning Broadway producer. And so our friend, kind of connected us, and, Harriet was like, oh, you're interested in producing? And I said, yeah. So I went to the Commercial Theater Institute, which is this group here in New York. I took a course about, learning how to be, what producing is about. And then Harriet came to me with an opportunity. She said, I am one of the lead producers on a play about Ann Richards. It's a one-woman show written by Holland Taylor. Would you be interested in getting, involved? And I was like, oh my goodness, this is like kismet. This is, of course I would. I adore her. So we went down, we saw the play at the Kennedy Center with Holland, and I came back and I said, I'm in. And so, what that meant, I became an associate producer on that, which meant I raised a good deal of money for it, which is, I think being a producer, you have to have two talents. One, I think, is to be able to recognize, those projects that you're going to feel passionate about, because then that feeds into your second talent, which is you have to be able to raise money, which is not easy to, well, it's not easy to do. But it can be done. It can be done if you're passionate enough about the project. And I was certainly about Ann Richards, and I just happened to be able to find other people who felt as passionately as I did about it. And, we raised the money, and it opened at Lincoln Center, and I was, very proud of. I will always be an above the line title producer on that show, which it gives me a lot of, pride. But I didn't really think that I would ever get to play the role, except several years later, I did a one-woman show at Cape May Stage, where I work a lot now.
Right.
And it's sort of like my home theater.
Right.
And it was about Irma Bombeck.
Mhm.
And I started thinking, well, I mean, for a small theater like Cape May Stage, a one-woman show as their first show is a godsend, because it's a tough time of the season to sell. And
Mhm.
so you don't want to incur a lot of expenses, a lot of
Mhm.
production
Mhm.
expenses. And so like a one-woman show, I mean, when I did Irma Bombeck, it was very successful.
Mhm.
So a couple years later, I said well, it was actually in 2019. It
Mhm.
was supposed to be, yeah, it was supposed to be the first show in 2019.
Mhm.
I said to Roy Steinberg, the artistic director, what would you think about me doing Anne? I
Mhm.
said, the only thing that I would absolutely insist on is that I get a great wig, because you have to have a great wig. It's 90% of the character. So he said, well, get you a great wig. I think it's a fantastic idea.
Mm.
So but obviously COVID happened. We had to wait. And then finally he said, we are going to open our 2021 season with Anne.
Mhm.
And I said, okay. And that was, because we didn't have a 2020 season.
Right. Right.
So maybe it was 2020 I was supposed to do it. That's what I think. So
Mhm.
we didn't have, so it got canceled then. And then 2021, we opened the end of June, and I ran
Mhm.
it for 7 weeks.
Mhm.
It was quite a challenge, being the first show to open up, during the pandemic.
Right.
It was a challenge for everybody backstage, but luckily, it was a small show.
Right.
I was the actor. There was a props person and sort of my assistant who helped me with my wig and stuff backstage, and a
Mhm.
stage manager, and that was it. And
Mhm.
it worked very, very well.
Mhm.
But a lot of the equity protocols at that time in June of 2021 were sort of difficult to deal with, but we got through. We
Yeah.
complied, we got through, and then they lifted the mask mandate, for equity did, and we thought, oh, people are going to come rushing to the theater. They didn't.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so that kind of brought up its own challenges. How do we get people in? Well, we put the mask mandate back in, which actually sort of brought the numbers up a bit. I think people wanted to wear a mask in the theater.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then for me, it just taught me, how you adjust your performance, whether you're doing it for, 30 people or 90 people.
Right.
How do you, what kind of adjustments do you need to make? And, it's thinking a lot on your feet. So overall, I mean, it was a not necessarily the most lucrative experience for Cape May Stage, but it was a wonderful experience for me personally.
Yeah. And so just so wonderful, just even you thinking about like being the actor producer, just even knowing where those shows are going to kind of fit into the season and what is going to sell. So you have 2 one-woman shows under your belt, which is amazing. And so something like that would terrify people. Just even so in your
Oh, it terrified me. It terrified me.
So your process, number one, how did you go about getting those shows in your body? And how were you able to kind of turn that, terrifying you to into kind of action?
Well, I think first off, the main thing is both of the women who I played, I loved.
Mhm.
Irma Bombeck at Wits End is a very funny show.
So funny.
And
So funny.
and it was, I'm glad that was the first one that I did,
Mhm.
because I had, my mother adored Irma Bombeck. Her columns were on our refrigerator when I was a kid. And, I started reading her books, and I saw her on TV, and I just thought she was hysterical,
Yeah.
and it was the show was set at a time that I could really identify with, because I remembered it from my own childhood, picking up the little army men, off the rug while you're vacuuming and walking on them and all this stuff. I remember all that. My process was that show opened in, I guess it was very early, either late May or early June of 2018. I started memorizing the text, and I was just memorizing. I mean, just getting it in there in January. I
Mhm.
started in January.
Mhm.
And I started approaching it from, okay, I'm going to, but this week we're doing page 1 through 10.
Mhm.
And then the next week, half of it I would do, like, I would make sure I knew page 1 through 10 and then add on like
Mhm.
11 through 18 or something. As you know, I worked with you, which was very helpful.
Mhm.
Once I sort of had a good body of it
Mhm.
memorized, we came in because,
Mhm.
it's very different memorizing it and then standing up on your feet and
Mhm.
starting to do it when you're doing. But,
Mhm.
you have to get all that into your muscle memory just so that, sometimes if you need to go on autopilot, you can, and you just trust that it's all going to be there.
Mhm.
Um, one of the I remember down in Cape May in May, they have this wonderful program called the Playwrights Symposium. And if there are any playwrights out there, I suggest that you take a look at it. It's great. They bring like master playwrights, like Terrence McNally was down there, God rest his soul. And, I mean, people of that stature and caliber. So they were having this playwrights symposium, and we were in rehearsals, and my director, Marlena Lustig, said the attendees would like to maybe come and watch a rehearsal. Would you be okay with that? And we had been rehearsing like a week, and I said, sure. I thought, well, you just have to be brave and go for it. And it was truly one of the scariest experiences of my life, because suddenly I realized, but it was good, because suddenly I realized I was standing up there and there was nobody else. It was me. And if I
Right.
went up, I just had to figure it out. I had to figure it out for
Right.
myself. So we
Yeah.
got through it. I mean, it was a very rocky. I think they only stayed for the first act, to tell you the truth, because I think it went on so long, but because I couldn't remember anything. But then I found out at the end of it that one of the playwrights who wrote it was actually at the Playwrights Symposium and in the office. I mean, in the audience, and I was like, "Oh my God, are you kidding me?" I'm so glad you didn't tell me that. But she came back and she said, I mean, it was really great that she was there. Her name was Margaret Engel, I think. And she said, you don't have all the words right now, but you got the spirit. And I thought, well, okay, all right, I'll go with that, because I know the words will come. But as most of my friends, and I always say to people, don't come in the first week.
Right.
We're still working it out. So, and I think seriously, as an actress, that, getting older, that's something that is a good thing. That I've learned that, you shoot for being there on opening night, but it's going to change.
Right.
It's going to evolve, and you're going to be better, as you ease your way into it, the longer the run is.
Right.
Yeah.
And so amazing that you also you have such great actor discipline, that just even that discipline of going, okay, I'm just going to memorize 5 pages at a time, 10 pages at a time, so that when you went into rehearsal, you knew all of your lines. You had been up in front of people with your lines, and as you articulated, that those lines so well that if you need to go on autopilot just because something might happen, or something throws you off one night, it's all part of it, and you just know that show so well that you kind of just keep rolling with it.
I'll give you an example in Irma Bombeck. The ironing was a big,
by the way, so funny, so great.
But ironing was a big part of it. I mean, she did a lot of ironing. So, you put I was actually ironing, the iron wasn't hot, but I was actually, ironing little dresses and things like that for the kids. And it was this old period iron that had, like, you put a plug into the iron, and then you put the other end of the plug into the wall.
Right.
So I'm ironing, and I set the iron down, and I'm supposed to cross, and I must have missed the ironing board, and the iron falls on the stage. And then the way Cape May stage is set up, it's like just open there, and it fell off the stage.
Oh my gosh.
So now there's an iron that's on the floor next to the stage, but it's plugged in the wall. And I'm like, okay, I got to go do something with this. So I go over and I grab the cord and I start to pull it up, and the plug comes out. So now the iron falls back on the floor, and I hold up the plug, and I just said, well, no more ironing for today. And, but I was able to, because I knew the show so well. I mean, that was a moment that could have really thrown me, but I just went into the next section.
Right.
So.
That's funny. That is so funny. And just being
It was a funny moment. I actually got applause. I got applause.
I'm sure you did. And audiences love that. Audiences love when those kind of things happen because it's real and it's spontaneous and it's unpredictable. And that's why we go to live theater. So those things can happen, which is so wonderful and great. I do have a couple of questions here that have come in. So, right. So thanks for sharing your story. As a producer, do you have any advice about how to respectively to do a cold reach out to people who you think would resonate with the project and potentially could help with funding? So if there's for my potential producers, like you and I are always trying to inspire people to create their own work, get their own work out. And so we say that, and then you go, okay, so if you have your own one-woman show, how are you able to kind of get that out? And what's your advice for people kind of starting out wanting to kind of produce their own stuff like that?
I've seen this from both ways. I don't really think that a cold outreach is a good idea. I think that producing is a lot of networking and who you know. And when you first start to, if you have a project, like for example, with Anne, what I did was I thought of my circle of not just circle of friends, but even larger than that, who, and this is very, very important, who were financially capable of investing a certain amount of money without having to worry about it. I mean, they were at a certain financial level that, they could be accredited. And that's really, really important, I think, in producing. So, networking, trying to reach those people. And I don't know, I think it's about 200. Well, it depends on the scope of your project. But, if you're talking with commercial theater, I think the accredited investors are about $250,000 in terms of annual income. And, there are a lot of ways to kind of skin that cat, but I don't think a cold reach is ever a good idea. I think try to, you talk to your friends and then you talk to say, hey, who do you know? Or, I got a couple of investors. I had no idea that they even knew of Ann Richards. And I just started talking about, enthusiastically, this is what I was doing. And suddenly they're like, I love her. Yeah, I'm going to give you $10,000.
Great.
Okay. Thank you. I'll take it. But I don't think a cold reach ever gets you very far.
Yeah. So just even that whole thing about just your connections, the people that know you who might be interested in the project that you're passionate about, that they're passionate about.
I think the passion, it really comes from the passion.
Yeah.
It really does. I mean, listen, I actually produced, but it wasn't credited as a production, a show called Southern Comfort at the Public Theater, because the way the Public Theater works, they actually do the producing, but I brought a lot of money and I enhanced the production with that money. I was incredibly passionate about this. We had an incredible cast, Annette O'Toole, oh gosh, people's names I'm forgetting them right now, but it was just an unbelievable cast. I mean, the fact that we got to do it at the Public was, just such a feather in our cap. But unfortunately, I think that the commercial theater was just not ready for a transgender musical, So I had all the passion in the world. And by that point, I knew a lot of big producers and I went to all of them and I got turned down, and you have to expect that that's going to happen too.
Right.
It's,
but you put all your energy into that. Yeah.
You put all your energy into it and you get burned. That's disappointing, but you kind of have to sit back, lick your wounds a little bit and say, okay, what's next?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe that question also, another question coming in. So uh, when you're doubting yourself, how do you help yourself when you feel those doubts coming in?
Mm.
Good question.
Um, well, I first off, I'm a big believer in prayer and meditation. And just kind of trying to, like, for example, today I was like, what am I going to talk about? Am I really a creative professional? I'm like,
Yes, you are.
so I had my own doubts about that today, but I thought, well, I love Lee, you know, so she's not going to put me in a bad situation. And I do have a lifetime of work to share.
You do.
So I do think that getting my maturing, I'm going to say maturing, has helped me conquer a lot of those doubts, because as my sister would say, once you hit 50, you just don't care anymore. You go out there, you do your best. I think you surround yourself with the most supportive people you can and say, it's good enough.
Right.
It's good enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. So, so the beautiful poster on your wall here, Steel Magnolias. Now, where did you get to do Steel Magnolias?
Oh, still, that was so much fun. I've done a lot of work at Cape May Stage. In fact, I think I've done 6 plays there now, 6 or 7 plays. As I said, it's kind of my home theater.
Yeah,
So Steel Magnolias I did in 2011. It's not like the movie at all, because it was just 6 women in a beauty parlor in the whole show. And so it was so much fun. And one of the women was Karen Ziemba. She played Malin in it, and she was just brilliant. And Marlena Lustig was in it with me. Who else? Ellen Dolan, who was on, I think, The Guiding Light for many years, and Meredith Riley Stewart, and I'm forgetting the really funny one who was in it, who played. It's hard to get older. But I said, you know what? I don't think I could ever have any more fun after this. This was so much fun. Yeah, and I, just playing with women. We had an almost all women team. It wasn't Roy Steinberg directed it, but it was almost all women, and we had so much fun backstage. And I thought, that's it. This is Nirvana. This is my theater Nirvana. I'm never going to do anything again.
That's great. Yeah,
it was. I absolutely loved it.
That's great. And so those women's projects, how do you think women are going to be able to kind of help get like more stories about women out in the world? Yeah.
Well, I think we just have to support one another. I think that well, I mean, for example, when I did the 2 one-woman shows, they were pretty much all female driven. And I think that, we support our women playwrights. We kind of try to put together women, a women production team, female driven. I mean, not to push men out of it at all, but I do think that, there needs to be a little bit more of a balance in terms of female directors, female playwrights, just female producers, because that's where a lot of the decisions are made. And also not just female, but we have to be a lot more diverse in, with the creative teams and all of that, female and diverse. I'm very supportive of that.
Yeah, which is very exciting. It's also, just, very exciting, all of that diversity and happening. So people in your life that have influenced you, does anyone come to mind here?
Oh my gosh.
People?
Yes. Yes. Well, the aforementioned legendary Sister Mary Donald.
Right.
Yes.
On your singing career, right? Yes.
Yes, she was very influential. My parents, my my father, he passed when I was very young, but I could see that he had this showmanship that I think really influenced me. My mother was a huge support. She would bend over backwards to help me get whatever I do. My sister, oh my goodness, my sister Lynn, I think, I mean, if it hadn't been for Lynn, those performances I did in high school would have been pretty pitiful because she was the one who would help me with my lines, who would say, that's not really the way you should say it.
Oh, right.
So, but I needed line readings. I was such a poor actress. I could sing, but I needed line readings, and she helped me relax, and she gave me a lot of confidence. I'm very indebted to her. People that I worked with in Philadelphia, I worked at this amazing, I went to college in Philadelphia at LaSalle, and there was a summer theater there that was semi-professional, but the people that were there, some of them are on this call or in this Zoom, that I worked with, there was just, the bar was set, so professional bar was set so high that, I mean, we were 17, 18, 19 years old, and, we were acting like we were on Broadway, and that was sort of the standard that was expected of us. So that was a great influence. In Philadelphia, I had a incredible sort of director and choreographer named, again, the Catholic Church was like so influential in my life. Brother Gene Graham, who was a Christian brother, but his nickname was Broadway Gene. And he got, my senior year of high school, he got David Merrick to donate all the sets and costumes from Hello Dolly, which had just closed on Broadway, to our high school production. And I played Dolly. And it was choreographed by this fabulous woman named Jean Williams. And between the two of them, they were the first ones who like really said, kid, you really got something, and you need to go with it. So, I'm very indebted to my Philly roots. I had great teachers in college. A man named Jim Foote kind of encouraged me a lot as an actress. And Bob Bush was a great musical director. And then how could I be remiss if I didn't say two of the biggest influences were Seth Barish and Lee Brock.
Oh.
No, it's true. It's true.
And Jerry Hathaway, right?
Well, Jerry Hathaway and my kids, of course.
Your kids, absolutely. Your kids, absolutely.
I learned from all of them in different ways.
Right.
Jerry Hathaway has been not only an incredible influence, but also support. I call him, my major patron of the arts, because he has supported me, all my life, and also our daughter, and all of that. So
right.
And I hope I'm not this is like an Oscar speech. I hope I'm not leaving anyone out. But
no, I mean,
I am just very grateful for everybody who's influenced me, and all the actors that I've worked with too. I've worked with amazing actors, and I learned from them, and I still learn from them. I never stop learning.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the gifts of being an actor.
Right. Is that we're learning every day with every single role that we do, every single audition that that comes up, that we're learning. And so, I mean, you and I, everybody on this Zoom is on the same page in regards to just supporting and nurturing artists. The more that we're supporting and nurturing them, that can, be their best that they possibly can be. The more that we're doing that, that's essential.
Everything. That's everything. And that's when I said, when I was little, I felt like I was an entertainer. When I came to the Barrow Group, that was when I really felt that I started to become an actress, because your method of teaching is just, it's so supportive, it's so safe, it's so insightful, and you just give this, these suggestions and adjustments that suddenly, as you look at what you're doing and you go, oh my gosh, that's of course, it's just a little adjustment, but it makes it so much more real, and I love it. I feel so confident, when I'm using those tools.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
good. So glad.
Yeah.
So glad. So wonderful. I do have another question. So I am also located in a rural area with limited opportunities. What do you recommend for regular work and building a network? Should I stay local or try to network and be involved in projects in bigger areas? Okay.
In what aspect?
In what
Producing,
aspect,
acting?
Gloria? Acting, producing, Gloria, any, um, she's gonna maybe text me back to see. Um, yeah, I think that's a very interesting question.
It is. I mean, I think in that situation, if
Acting,
you're not,
acting, yes, she said acting. Yeah, acting. Mm.
well, you know, I don't, it's funny. I really don't audition anymore. So I don't even know, I think, how it goes. But I do think that because of what I'm talking into right now, and, the fact that we can, send out reels of ourselves and everything,
Right.
there is no such thing as rural anymore, is there?
I agree with that. I
Yeah.
think I totally agree with that. And like with those acting opportunities, like I think everything is like those self tapes, and people are sending stuff in. And I think also with the Barrow group, we were able to kind of do our teaching online, so people necessarily didn't have to come into this. Well, you couldn't because it was a pandemic, but to come in to be here in New York City for classes, that you were able to kind of, take classes on Zoom, so that you were still getting the tools and the techniques. And I think just even as we were talking, any way that you can build your network, any way that you can build your network through Zoom, I think it's just expanded, is
And
the
just
way.
keep sending the things out. I mean, as a young actress, you know, before I kind of got an agent and, had connections and things like that, I would always go through backstage. I would, look at the theaters around. Don't look necessarily at Broadway initially if
Right.
you're a young actor,
Right.
but look at the smaller theaters and what they're doing, and
Right.
try to keep sending in your reels to them, and look at what their season's going to be and what they're looking for, and if you're right for something. And even if, just understand that you might get rejected 20 times, 50 times, 100 times, but at some point, you will get hired.
Right.
I was in the national tour of Les Miserables, and that was run through, it was,
Playing
it
which
was a
role?
wonderful.
What role were you playing in that Les Miserables?
Well, I was, hats off to understudies. I covered the role of Fantine, but my regular role was the factory girl, because they knew I was a good fighter. But I auditioned. I got that because I had been on a track auditioning for this one casting office here in New York that is no longer around, for Cats. I had been auditioning for Cats like for a couple years,
Right.
and they kept calling me in and I would never get it. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I mean, I actually I was living in New Jersey. I wasn't doing much auditioning. And the casting director calls me and he says, "Are you retired now?" Or, what I said, "Well, I'm sort of semi-retired," but I knew who it was. I said, what are you looking for?" And he said, "Well, would you want to come in and audition to play the factory girl in Les Mis and cover the role of Fantine?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not retired."
I think
So
we make room for that, right?
I had 3 kids. I didn't know how we were going to do it, but I knew we were going to do it.
Right.
I knew we were going to do it. And so, that's the thing where I had been auditioning, never got anything. Boom, out of the blue comes this opportunity. I go in, I get the role, and
Right.
within like a week, I'm in Boston.
Right.
So, joining the company of the National Tour of Les Miserables.
Right. Which is
So
such a
never give up, never give
That's
up.
right. And that whole thing, like even knowing those casting offices, like you're kind of, as you said, you were auditioning for Cats, so that casting office knows you, and then they'll call you in for something that's totally, it's not Cats, or
Absolutely.
even a couple years later. So you never know where those connections are gonna, come. I remember I went in for an audition for, I went a long time ago, and they pulled my resume out from 20 years. They go, "Do you still have this resume?" I said, "Oh yeah, you just better keep that one." Right. Yeah, just keep that one. But I was so impressed that they had that on file from, this
Right.
20-year-old,
And
headshot.
and the casting directors talk to one another. They
Right.
have meetings. They're like, I'm looking for somebody for this. Oh, I know somebody. She
Right.
came in the other day.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So you just
it
gotta
is
keep
a
doing it.
business of connections. It really
Right.
is. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not show friends, but it's show business, not show friends, but it is a business of connections.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And the more that you just keep auditioning and just keep putting yourself out there, and you and I talk just even keeping your creative energy moving forward, just keep working on stuff, doing stuff.
It's
It's
so true. And also, I think, I mean, I'm not doing it right now, but because I'm not even actively working right now, but I think you have to stay in class. And here's why. Because even if you're not, in a play or something like that, when you're in class and you're used to getting up every week and you're used to working with other partners, and, when you go into audition, you're going to be so much more facile on your feet in your
Right.
audition than, if you're not taking class and not studying. I mean, being
Right.
an actor is like being a musician. You have to keep practicing.
Right.
It's not just you need to get the input from other people, I think, and just to keep it moving, keep it sharp.
Yeah. Yeah. I have another question here. So, how did you balance your family life with your career?
Oh, well, that's a very, very good question. And it wasn't easy. It
Right.
really wasn't easy. I think always, and I think Lee, you would attest to this, that my maternal instincts were always stronger
Yeah.
than whatever my career goals were.
Mhm.
So, I always went with what was good for my kids. If it was good for my kids to do this, like when I did Les Mis, I did have 3 kids,
Right.
but
Amazing.
we were going to be in Washington during the summer. They weren't in school. I thought, well, this could be an incredibly wonderful adventure for us all.
Right.
And,
Right.
that's what we did. We went to Washington when we did Evita. I had 2 kids then.
Right.
And, my son Michael and I were talking about it, about how he learned to swim in the Allenbury pool. He was 7 years old. So there was always, if it could work out for the kids, then I was fine with doing it. I mean, actually, when Michael was an infant, I was working at the Summer Theater in Philadelphia. I was talking about, and I used to have his playpen backstage, and he was like this little. He had one of those, walker things that went around everywhere, and he would visit dressing rooms, So he was like a little show baby. But I always tried to take my kids with me, and but then it got to a point, especially with the third one, when it was just like, I can't do this now. Nobody's happy. I wasn't happy.
Right.
I mean, it's hard. It truly is hard to juggle. And Lee, I know you know this, to juggle being a
Right.
mom. And because when you're as an actress, and you're in something, your focus has to be on that. And that's just
Right.
the exact opposite of what a mother does. So, it had to take a back seat for a while, but then
Right.
my kids got older, and I thought, okay, let's see if I still have the desire and the passion for this. And I did.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I started doing, my son graduated from high school in 2006, college 2010. And that was when I did my first play back at Cape May Stage. So,
Yeah.
but I also kept studying during that time.
Right.
So I wasn't actively working, but I kept studying. I was in class at the Barrow group,
Right. Yeah.
doing readings and things like that.
Right. And that whole thing,
Networking, keeping the
yeah.
connections.
Yeah, keeping the connections, and that whole thing, I think that you would like what you said, just even when you are in class, that you are practicing, just getting up, practicing your craft each time that you're in class, different material, different partners. So then when you go to these auditions, you go, oh yeah, that's a piece of cake, because I just did a 10-page scene in class the other day. So also it keeps your memorization skills even sharper, all of that, and just practicing your craft in front of people. So it's
And that's the thing to remember too, is that it's not like magic. It is a craft.
Right.
And there are tools you can employ to, kind of make it easier, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Here's another question. So, so what's it like having a famous daughter? Mm.
Oh, oh, it's wonderful.
That's wonderful. It's so wonderful, right?
We live two lives. We have our A-list life when we're with Annie, and then we have our normal life when we're not. But no, it's amazing. It's, she has brought us, my husband and I, and all of our family, to some amazing experiences. And, we've gotten to sort of live a bit of, vicariously, like this A-list life through her, which is interesting because I don't think I'd want it. I think that's what I learned, which is really interesting because, you always think, oh, gosh, it must be so fabulous. Parts of it are, but parts of it are, a bit intrusive. And I think she handles it with amazing grace. And, I think I know she loves what she does. I think she handles it with grace and, beauty, but, it's not something that I would really want. I love what she's doing with it too, by the way, because I think she is, the tricky side of fame, is you can either use it for good or,
Right.
you can become it can become a monster for you.
Monster juice. Yeah,
Monster juice. Yeah, who coined that phrase?
We're not going to drink that
Jerry
monster
Hathaway.
juice, right? Jerry Hathaway, right? Yeah, we're not drinking any monster juice, right?
We did not let her drink any monster juice. And I think one of the proudest things for me is when people say to me, your daughter is so grounded, which is funny because she did a one-woman show named called Grounded, but
Grounded, right?
she's so grounded. How did she get that way? You raised her so right. And I said, well, it's, kind of what we did, but I think it's also kind of who she was. And it was in her nature to, be kind and compassionate and see the bigger picture and not get caught up, in the trappings of, what that kind of a life can bring sometimes. So I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, that's like so great. And I can't even believe this has gone so fast. It was like, oh my gosh. So if you
Oh my goodness, wow.
I know, right? I know. So like what would you kind of say to younger people like coming out of this COVID time, coming out of high school, college, that are just kind of starting their careers? Do you have any sort of sage advice for people just starting their career, coming to New York City, just kind of starting their careers?
Be patient, learn how to study with the best people that you can. Keep yourself healthy and fit. Learn to listen and just believe in yourself and know that, a lot of New York is a wonderful, wonderful, New York is a wonderful place, but the theater community is a tribe and you're always going to find your place in it. So never stop looking and read everything you can. Go to those off Broadway theaters and support them, because that's probably where you're going to get, unless you're very lucky, that's probably where you're going to get your first start. So places like the Barrow group, get involved with that. I mean, you're more than an off Broadway, but the Here Arts Center, I just saw a wonderful, wonderful play there last, I guess it was October now, but called Between the Bars with, fabulous actors, six fabulous actors who I'd never heard of, but their work was just so good. Wonderful. And so there are a lot of opportunities out there. Plus, don't forget about trying to create your own opportunities. You have this wonderful, this wonderful technology available to you that, was not there when I was young. So, use it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank you so much. This has been incredible. Thank you so much.
Oh no.
Well,
I have to thank you, and I want to thank everybody. I kind of feel like the romper room woman here. I see Sydney Burgoyne, and I see Lynn Chevry, Joe O'Donnell. I see you. Thank Michael Hathaway. Thank you for joining.
Yes,
Doug
thank you.
Kittle,
Yep.
Ariel. I see Benjamin. Thank you, my friend.
And we get this, they say, thank you, Kate. Thank you so much. And your dog is so cute. And I must say, Sandy did not upstage you at all. Kate and I were laughing a little bit before we were coming on. We said, oh, Sandy's there on the couch. And remember, you're never supposed to have, be on stage with dogs and kids. And
Oh,
Sandy,
he was looking for which side he was going to show. Yeah, he was. Let me see if I can get him.
yeah, he's like so cute.
There he is.
He is really, really asleep.
But he's yeah, he's a little sweetheart. And thank you for joining me, Sandy. That was awfully nice to be so quiet. But Lee, I want to thank you and Seth seriously for everything you've done, not just for me, but for Annie. I don't know how many people know, but Lee and Seth were really Annie's first teachers, because we wouldn't let anybody else in New York work with her. And so they took her on at a very young age, and they really, really made a difference in who she is. And, I think we're pretty proud of her work.
Yes. Very proud of her work. Very proud of her work.
And I can't wait to work with you again at some point. That would be wonderful.
Yes, definitely. Just even we have like all kinds of projects to look forward to here. And
I know, it's so exciting. It's such an exciting time.
It is a very exciting time. And just kind of, as you said, I loved your whole thing about being patient, that actors and artists need to be patient with themselves and to keep staying positive in their.
It's surprising because I'm not the most patient person in the world, but I've been doing this for so long that I figure I am patient, because I'm still doing it. But for me, it's what I learned ultimately over the scope and the arc of my career is it's just always about the work. It's not about the fame. It's not about the success even, really. But if you can stay in there, and have support,
right,
it pays off, because at the end of the day, I love being on stage.
Yeah, that's good. That's like so good. Oh, great. Thank you so much. That was awesome. That was so awesome. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us this afternoon, and take care of yourselves and be well. And
thank you all, my friends. Bye.
Okay.